Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Today is going to be an absolutely amazing podcast. I can't wait to get this guest on the line and to hear their story because this person has more world titles than you can poke a stick at. At the age of 62, he's been in the elite level of the sport for over 40 years, so spanning 4 decades of amazing arm wrestling. I, of course, am talking about Mr. Intensity himself, Alan Fisher from California in the USA. So without any further ado, let's get Alan Fisher on the line. Alrighty, here we go.
Hello?
G'day, Alan Fisher. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Ryan. How you doing?
Very well, very well. How's California treating you, sir?
Man, you couldn't have such better. Well, I don't know. You guys got pretty awesome weather out there too, man. And what am I talking about?
Yeah, tomorrow is the first day of winter here, so we're getting rugged up. But winter's not too bad in Brisbane, Australia. But Alan, look, thank you so much for coming on the show. Of course, for all of our guests, Alan Fisher, this man right here, is one of the most legendary arm wrestlers to have ever been in the sport, with over 40 years at the elite level. Alan, you have achieved some amazing things, and if it's all right, Alan, I would love to start this conversation off with you by hearing how you got started in the sport. How did you find the sport of arm wrestling all those years ago?
Ryan, before we get to me, let's get to you.
Sure.
I just want to say how much I appreciate everything you are doing for the sport of arm wrestling. You are really putting arm wrestling on the map in a huge way. You've got that radio personality, you know, that voice.
Yeah, I've always been told.
Awesome.
I've always been told I got a face for radio, but no, thank you so much, Alan. I really do appreciate it, and it's a joy of mine. So to be able to have people like yourself on the show, it's amazing. So thank you.
It's
thank
awesome.
you. Awesome.
So how did I get in the sport?
Yeah.
Well, I got in the sport because somebody told me I needed to go to a tournament at Magic Mountain back in August of 1979. I said, all right, I'll go. So I kind of I didn't go kicking and screaming, but I went to see if I was as strong as everybody thought I was. And I ended up there. It was a National Arm Wrestling Association's championship that led to a national championship.
Yep.
So, you know, I went in there not just to do some podunk. It was one that actually would help me qualify for the national championships, which I had no idea they even had such a thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what it was. I just showed up there.
Yep. How did it play out?
You know, interesting enough, there's no way I can describe this to you unless I was setting up with you. My very first match, when that guy gripped my hand and set up with me on the table, I knew exactly every detail of each finger pressure, wrist movement, load pressure, which we know is loading, and back pressure and side pressure. I immediately, without knowing anything about this sport, knew that I was designed to do this for the rest of my life, just because of that alone.
Yeah.
I mean, for me to be able to look at somebody like that and know all those things was bizarre.
Yeah.
So I ended up walking away with 5th place in that event.
Yep.
That was my very first time.
I'm curious, Alan. Before you even found that event, were you someone that arm wrestled your friends growing up in school and your family, or was this the first time you were introduced to it?
You know, I may have. I don't really remember a lot before high school.
Yep.
But I may have. But I was born. Maybe you don't know my story. I was born with a club foot.
Okay.
And at that time, they didn't know how to repair it other than put cast on you. So I wore a cast on my foot for my leg, I guess, all the way to my knee, for 13 years.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was in excruciating pain most of my childhood life. I could not play baseball. I couldn't run. I couldn't do things like normal kids. So what I did was I saw these things called monkey bars. Yeah. And I went over to those monkey bars and I would climb and I would just have so much fun. In fact, when they had like a swing set, instead of me swinging on some swing, I found myself pulling myself up on those, those bars and hanging up there and looking down at the people swinging. I used my upper body strength to do things when I was a kid because I couldn't use my legs.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense because I'm yet to meet you face to face and grip up with you, but I've heard and seen lots of people make comments about the natural strength you have in your hand and the size of your hand is phenomenal. So, I think your childhood has shaped you well into naturally being an amazing arm wrestler. That's awesome. So
it gave me a tenacity to say when my teachers, when my friends, when people that knew me said that I couldn't do certain things and I couldn't achieve this, I couldn't say that. I'm like, yeah, I am. And I'm going to go beyond what you guys actually say. And it gave me a tenacity that, I started doing some very strange things, like in high school, for example, way before arm wrestling. I couldn't afford tennis balls to play handball with. We used to actually take the skins off of tennis balls because I couldn't afford racket balls.
Yeah.
So I used to climb on top of the roof of the high school, and nobody had ever done this before. I don't think so, because there were hundreds of tennis balls on top of this roof. And because I wasn't disciplined to study in school, I found myself being very busy tearing the skins off of tennis balls.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's why I built up a lot of hand pressure, too.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I'm going to have to give that a go after the podcast, but that sounds amazing. So, Alan, after that tournament where you finished fifth and you got the feel straight away that arm wrestling was meant for you, where did it lead to from there? How long before you were like all in on this? Like, I want to be a world champion.
Ryan, as soon as they sent me the first flyer, I was out of the gate, man. I was like, oh, that's it, I'm going. And I went to the NAWA, the Southern California Arm Wrestling Association, all these different people that put on events, which, I have to give a plug to these people because they made our sport grow in ways in which I've never seen it since then. And that is, they would hold tournaments at indoor malls, outdoor malls, where you have these captive audiences and people wanted to get involved.
Yeah.
So that's where I wound up. I just started going to every tournament. There's at least a tournament once a month.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. You guys got that in Australia?
We've got probably 5 or 6 state level tournaments, a national tournament, and then an international tournament. So we've probably got 8 or 9 tournaments a year in Australia. So we're almost at that once a month. But yeah, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome that you're.
And Ryan, that's how you get better, man. It's I think that's what made John Brzenk one of the greatest arm wrestlers in history. Is that John had an opportunity to travel around the world and grip up with different people, different strengths, different styles, different hand sizes, everything. And I think that really helped me a lot too, because whenever there was arm wrestling, I was there. As much as I could be, I was there.
Yeah. And no two arm wrestlers feel the same, as you say. Everyone feels different. Everyone.
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to meet up yet, but you're way out of my weight class anyway.
Yeah. 165 pounds was very hard for me to get to. I got there once, and I feel like I almost killed myself doing it, so I'm not going there again. But Alan, I'd love to know about your training methods. You've obviously had an enormous amount of longevity in the sport as well. So not only have you been competing for 40 years at the elite level, but you've done it in such a dominant form that's ended up having so many world titles. So what has been the key for longevity in the sport for you?
Number one, it's got to be about diet. It really does. You've got to take care of that one body God gave you. He wants you to take care of it. He put food on the planet for you to take care of it. He didn't design all these isolated, fragmented, and synthetic forms of nutrition, which can throw your body in really strange places. So for me, it's been like 21 years where I've gone on what we call a whole food diet.
Yeah.
Before that, to be honest with you, I ate like crap like everybody else, right? And thought I could fix it by taking all these forms of nutrition that everybody said I should be taking.
Yeah.
Once I got the concept that, hey, the best source of nutrition is found in unaltered food, it changed my life completely. The other thing that And did you get to see the Game of Arms?
Yeah, yeah, very much. I loved it.
Okay, so do you remember one of the things I said on there? It's not, everybody says the more pain you have, the more gain.
Yeah.
That's not true. But the more you can control pain, right?
Yep.
The more you have better growth. You have better growth. You have better longevity. You have, what can I say? Less damage, if I can say. You know what I'm saying? So. Yeah. The problem is people get to the point where, and I hear this all the time, man. I've been doing arm wrestling training camp since almost like the mid '80s, and I find out that people they overtrain, or they're not training enough. They're not conditioning themselves. Now, here I am, 62 years old, and one thing I do when I'm taking a break, as it were, for arm wrestling, because let's say injury, for example.
Yep.
But when I come back, I'm going back to step one, man. I'm conditioning myself to do what I'm about ready to get involved in.
Yeah, yeah.
So why do I outlast people? Is because I work in different positions, different angles, different degrees, different weights when it comes to, or different everything. I'm not a weightlifter, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a gym rat. I never liked the gym. When I first got invited to the gym by the world champion himself, multiple world champion Steve Lusby, took me to the gym for the first time. That place stunk.
Yeah, they all look at you weird when you do arm wrestling specific movements as well.
No, that's another thing. But that's the reason why I never found myself in a gym. I have a sensitive nose, so getting in a gym where you've got this rink of people's bodies, forget it.
Yeah.
So anyway, and then I come to find out that, really the best thing you can do for arm wrestling is table time and tournament time. There's nothing better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've seen you use a lot of bands when it comes to developing that conditioning that you talk about. Has that been something that you've really been a kind of cornerstone of your training methods?
Absolutely. When I started out, I still had these springs, by the way. I've got these springs that are probably made in the 1940s. It was probably the first arm wrestling stuff I had. Like I said, I was not a rich kid, but when I first got I built my first table out of 2x4s, by the way, and just put a piece of wood on top with a towel.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and I hooked this spring up that I'm talking to you about. It's got like 5 or 6 different springs on it. I can't remember. But they're just springs. It's called a chest expander, right? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Right, but this one's from the 1940s, so it's got some good springs on it.
Yeah.
That's what I used to train with.
Nice.
So I got the concepts that when you're training with weights, you're in an isolated form of movement, unless you're like when you're doing bench press, you're doing a narrow grip to a wide grip and everything in between,
yep.
Or you're doing what they call the incline, decline, and normal. But when you're training with springs and bands and things like that, you get all those different little muscles working that you didn't know you had.
Yeah.
All the what they call a multifidi and everything else.
Yep.
There's so many different bellies of muscles when you're focusing on one. For example, like you're doing curling, just straight curling. You're focusing in on certain bellies of the muscle, because you're not working on other bellies that are in that bicep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the bands and with the springs. And with arm wrestling, you're training all the different groups and then some.
Yeah, absolutely. Because arm wrestling feels very combative. I think a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that it is just purely a strength sport, where, as you've said, a strength sport is kind of against one object, stays the same every time, where we're in a sport where there's so many different positions that we need to be able to pull in and be conditioned in. So I'm hearing you. I agree 100%. I think that's on the money.
Awesome. And one other thing, I'll give you these are some of my hints. I hate to give them out to the world, but hey, I'm going to be retired in 6 years anyway. And that is, I don't move weights with momentum, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Okay. I control resistance.
Yep. Okay,
and I can control resistance at different durations, different speeds, different powers. And in that, I'm kind of, which is what we want to all do, is we want to mimic what we're trying to do on the arm wrestling competition.
Yeah.
Go everywhere.
I like it. I'm going to give it a go next training session. A bit more control and less explosion. Alan, I would love to. The next question I would love to ask you is about the journey from kind of starting out to your first world title and the rivalries that you developed along the way. I know the name you've mentioned Dave Patton to me before as one of your early and most significant rivals. Can you tell me about that journey and your rivalry with Dave?
Okay, so I was pretty much as an amateur arm wrestler. August 1979 is when I got in. I took my first world professional title in December of 1980 in Las Vegas with the NAWA, the same people that I went to their first tournament.
Yep.
And so in the amateur division, I basically weighed 150 pounds, right? And I was so good, so fast, and picked up on the sport so quick that it got to the point where those people that were sanctioning the sport, controlling the sport, they almost forced me to go in upper classes because I was so dominating.
Yeah.
And I got to the place where I was going in the super heavyweight division and not having any problems. So an announcement came up that the World Amateur Championships, and you probably know about this, Ryan. If you don't, you should probably send your amateurs over here.
Yep.
This was a big, big thing over here in the United States. People from all over the world came to this thing, and it was the Buena Park Silverado Days, which is where they held the World Amateur title.
Yep.
So that was coming up in October, and I thought, okay, do I go to that or do I go to this other thing that I found out about, the World Professional Championships in Las Vegas? And Ernie Jeffries, the gentleman who I have to give credit to, helped me get out of the mentality of stop drinking beer and toking and doing all that stuff. Get your shit together.
Yep.
And become a professional athlete, right?
Yep.
That was the last talk I heard from Ernie. And he told me that, because of my hand size, I could probably be a world champion. Well, that got in my mind thinking, you know what? Ernie's right. I need to stop, with the jug of beer in my hand, arm wrestling guys,
Yeah.
and get serious about this. So I decided to go to Las Vegas, do the World Championships. Ernie said, here's a list of guys you got to watch out for in this competition. John Renfro, Burt Whitfield, David Patton, Jack Wynn, and I already been. Jack was the guy I met, my very first guy. Do you know who Jack Wynn is?
No, I don't know. Before my time in awareness.
Okay, well, when I got on the scene, Jack Wynn was the guy to beat.
Yep.
Jack was a multi-world champion in wrist wrestling and arm wrestling. Short, little, stocky guy. They call him Popeye.
Yep.
So my very first tournament that I went through, John Renfro was the guy that said this is going to probably win this thing. And my Jeffries told me, he says, you got to watch out for these guys. Well, I'll tell you what. I got to that tournament, and there was no way I was going to let any name get in my head. I don't care who they were. When you said, what was it that the guys that I went through, I forget how you just put it. I don't go through anybody but myself.
Yep.
I don't think of Jack Wynn. I don't think of David Patton. I don't think of John Renfro. I don't think of Steve Les. I don't think about anybody other than what I'm there to do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what can happen is I'm going to create negativity in my mind, or an if clause, or something that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you start to give yourself excuses and permission to lose.
I mean, even when I arm wrestled John Brzezinski there in 2009, John and I pulled a few times.
Yeah.
I never put it in my head that, wow, that's John Brzezinski, I'm going down.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm Alan Fisher. I'm going to go through him the best I can with the abilities that I've got, no matter what.
Yeah,
I can't let John in my mind.
Yeah, make someone make someone beat the best version of you every time.
There you go. So let me tell you this. I got to tell you a short story.
Sure, please.
So my very first match at the NAWA World Arm Wrestling Championships from Las Vegas is David Patton. My referee is Virgil Arcerero,
Yeah.
and I forget the other downside ref. Well, back in those days, when you pulled somebody's elbow off the pad, they lost.
Yep.
Guess what? I pulled Dave's elbow off that pad 7 times, and Virgil would not call it. So you know what I did? I said, I'm going to the loser's bracket. Screw this.
Yep.
So I did. I went to the loser bracket. And I went through all the guys I just mentioned and then some. And the guy I had to beat for the World Championships was Jack Popeye Wynn.
Yep.
Unbelievable. And Jack's never beat ever in competition. Dave and I, wow, you talk about one of the greatest names in arm wrestling history, and to me, by far a legend. We battled each other for probably about 15 years. So here's what that means. If if Dave showed up at a tournament and I showed up at a tournament, there was no doubt in people's mind that he and I would be first and second.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
That's
And
awesome.
can you imagine going to a tournament for 15 years and that happening?
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it.
The crowds were off the chart, like so loud you couldn't hear. You couldn't hear yourself. In fact, I never hear go. That's one of my problems. I never hear go because I'm in such a zone that I mean, you might even look at the referee sometimes today because I'm 62.
Yep.
But back then, I trained for ga. I don't train for go,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
problem is I never hear the go or the ga. So what people think is that when they say ready go, when I feel something in my hand is when I hit.
Yep. There you go.
Anyway,
Very
it's a
rare.
long story. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Please, please. And I'd love to ask about another rival of yours that you've had. I guess that we still see on the scene today and through the WAL and many other tournaments, being of course Andrew Cobra Rhodes. You and him seem to have shaped so much of the sport as well in the last couple of decades. What's it been like, the rivalry with Andrew?
Oh man. Okay. How can I put this? Cobra is in my heart.
Yep.
Okay, he is probably the only arm wrestler in history that is in my heart. I don't know why, but when I get a chance to pull Cobra, it's unlike anyone I've ever arm wrestled in my life. It could be the fact that he's so technical, he's so fast, he's so powerful, he's got that endurance. He plays tricks with you.
Yes.
What you want to call him, the Cobra or the Snake, right? You never believe a word that guy says, I'm telling you. But I love Cobra 100%. But it's, wow.
It's something special,
thinking
right?
about his name has got my heart just pounding. And we don't even arm wrestle anymore. But for some reason, God has put that guy in my heart.
Yeah.
I have no idea why.
Well, I know for me, when I first came to the sport, seeing you and Cobra were actually two of the first people that I discovered when I started looking into the sport, and it looked like a very special rivalry. That one that you could see that you'd trade blows in matches, and the amount of heart and effort that had to go into getting a victory over the other was enormous. And I think that having a rival like that just that lifts your own performance and makes you strive to be a better athlete is a special thing. So that's
absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah.
If you ever get in matches with that guy, babe, you better know your stuff.
You'll take leverage off you before you know it, eh?
Absolutely.
Oh, good stuff. Alan, another thing that you've contributed so much to, obviously, other than just the world of arm wrestling itself, is you're a man of God, and you've contributed so much to your community through the prison inmates program that you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've brought the two worlds of arm wrestling and the service to the prison inmates together?
Well, there was a gentleman back in the 80s. His name is Gary Figner. Gary Figner also was a world-renowned arm wrestler, but Gary also was a. Do you know who Tony Hawk is?
Not the skateboarder, is it?
Yes. Okay,
Yeah, there
so
you
you know
go.
Tony Hawk.
Yep.
Right. So Gary Figner was a skateboarder. He was considered one of the best freestyle skateboarders in the world when it didn't even exist.
Yeah.
He was like an Evel Knievel of skateboard.
Yep.
So, and I say that because he broke every bone in his body practically from skating, but he was awesome. Okay, so there's this guy named Ed White who sets Gary and I up for a super match that didn't even exist because they didn't have super matches back then here in San Diego because Gary was considered the best. I was an up-and-coming, quote, the best. And I got to know Gary through that. I ended up beating Gary. Gary never beat me either. But Gary and I became very good friends. Gary had a friend that he also knew. I mentioned Tony Hawk because the guy I'm about to mention, his name is Dennis Martinez.
Okay.
You can actually look him up as a skateboarder. He is a multiple world champion skateboarder who had some pretty, serious drug issues and, jail time and all kinds of stuff. His story is quite interesting. Anyway, he called me up one day with Gary Figner, and we got talking. And Gary, Dennis has come to the Lord himself, and his ministry is pretty much doing everything for the Lord. Well, he asked if Carolyn and I would be willing to go into the prisons and arm wrestle these giant monsters. And prison guys look like, they don't look like guys on the street.
Yeah, big tough guys.
Just unbelievable. So we've been in there. I think we're probably on our 8th, maybe even 10th time. I don't even know. But man, when you look at these guys being pulled out of the crowds, and they're coming up there, and they've got this look on their face and their muscles, they don't even have to flex them. They're already flexed.
Yeah.
They're pumped and ready to go. So when I first got in there, basically what it was like was, and you don't know much about me, but I'm all about safety. Number one, safety. So I don't slam people. I don't challenge people. I want to make sure people can use the muscles they have. That means their pec, their shoulder, the bicep, the forearm, their hands, everything, right?
Yeah.
But it's all about safety. If you know me, you know what a 30-degree angle is. If you don't know me, you don't know what a 30-degree angle is.
Yeah.
So it's all about 30 degrees and pulling safety. So what I tell these guys is I set them up and I set their shoulders parallel. I'm parallel with them. And I say, look, here's what you're going to do. I want you to use that giant bicep, that massive pec that's staring me in the face, and I want you to pull your hand to your chest.
Yeah.
Because I don't put any pads, winning and losing pads, in any arm wrestling table I've ever owned.
Yep.
I take them all off. So the idea is for them to pull to their chest. So what happens is they get in there, start using all those muscles, but because I've been doing this so long and have this connective tissue strength that outdoes all their muscle, I'm able to hold them with that tendon strength, that connective tissue, and point to that bicep saying, no, you're not using that.
Yeah.
You got to use that big muscle.
So
my very first time in there, that's exactly what happened. And they did the same. They challenged Carolyn when they did that out. They couldn't touch me. So Carolyn starts beating these guys, and they got to do the walk of shame going back into the crowds. And actually live with that whole idea that some girl just beat them, right?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Until we get back into prisons again. So my reputation actually got out, and now when I go to the prisons, nobody wants to arm wrestle me.
Can you believe that? I saw a video just the other day. I'd love to hear your take on it, of a giant guy, 350 pounds, that came out of the crowd.
380 pounds.
380.
Throw the 30 on there. Okay, so I don't know how many times I arm wrestle. We have two places where you arm wrestle one day. The first one's the morning one. The other one's the afternoon. So I was actually injured from doing this, what do you call it, massage, not massage, stretching with my wife. We're doing this weird stretching thing, this romantic thing, right? Well, I ended up tearing all kinds of things in my shoulder. In fact, it's still healing, and it's been 3 months. So I told the host, and I told the prison people, I said, look, I'll set these guys up. They can arm wrestle each other. I'll just kind of coach them through, make sure they don't get hurt. You know what? That's another thing. Dude, check this out, Ryan. When I first went into the prison, and I talked about how easy it is to snap the arm, 15 pounds pressure, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
We don't care if they break their arms. Seriously, that's exactly what they said. But anyway, I won't. I refuse to pull in a broke arm position. I'd rather lose.
Yeah.
Anyway, this big. So I arm wrestled all morning. These several guys. I don't know, probably about 16 people. I don't even know. What are you supposed to arm wrestle? Then the second session, I arm wrestled probably 8 guys before this guy. They're all going crazy, as you can see in the video, because this guy, he's hidden in that crowd of inmates right there. And then they start chanting his name. He comes up there, and I'm looking at this big monster. I'm like, all right, well, I've got to hit this guy as hard as I can, because I can't hold this guy forever.
Yeah.
And as you saw, this guy, when I hit him, he just stopped me.
Yeah, it was interesting.
And Ryan, really, I don't know how strong you are. I've seen what you do with weights, but what you can do with weights, what you can do in arm wrestling table is two different things. You probably can't beat this guy either.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
He's that strong. I could
horsepower.
not believe it. I can't wait till he gets out, man. I want to put this guy in the circuit.
Yeah, well, he'll probably come looking for you straight away and say, "Come on, Alan, I had so much fun. Let's do this." That's
He's
awesome.
such a humble guy too. I mean, that seemed kind of unusual to me that he's as humble as he is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So yeah, when next time we go in there, and I'm sure they're gonna set it up somehow, some way. I'm taking him on first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not
You
going
need
to
to be a bit
injure.
more fresh. That's awesome. But I
Exactly.
think what you're doing there in the prisons is amazing. You can just see the energy in the inmates there, the positivity that's coming from that, and I think that it'd be something that they would cherish and it'd sit with them for a long time. So I think that
I appreciate that,
yeah,
man. I
that's
really
well done.
do. I mean, our first time in was with a maximum security 4, right? There's only goes up to 5,
Yep.
and this 21-year-old kid looked like a model. I mean, this guy was like, "What the are you doing in this prison?"
Yep.
And I said, "How long?" Yeah, I got a conversation with the guy, and I said, "How long are you in for?" He looks at me, big smiles. Like I said, he could have been a model. He
Yeah.
goes, "I'm in for the rest of my life."
Oh wow.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my goodness, what a wake up call to
Yeah.
get something like that."
It's heavy.
Wow,
Yeah.
it is heavy. So if we can be there and help these guys out and share the gospel with them and give them hope, and you know what, Ryan, you'd be shocked how many real Christians there are in prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, not just in name only because we know we did something bad and we came to Jesus. No, no, these guys are willing to put their lives on the line in prison just to share Christ with the other people.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I can tell you one more story.
Sure. Please do.
Okay, so the guy that was the one of the beginners of the Mexican mafia, which you don't even know what that is because you're in Australia.
Sounds bad.
One of the guys that started the Mexican mafia, he got saved sometime. I don't even know when. But anyway, he got saved and he went in the prisons with us. And this guy, because he actually got saved, there's a contract out on his life that if anyone that is actually connected to the mafia of any kind, they're supposed to kill him.
Oh wow. Gee whiz.
Okay, in the prison.
That's
What
insane.
happened?
Alan, that's all incredible stuff, Alan. I would love to ask you a couple of last few questions on this one, mate. Has there been a favourite moment in the sport over the 40 years that you've been involved in arm wrestling?
Wow, what a great question. Favorite moment? Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what. There's been a lot of different matches. Every match with, if I could remember all, Dave Patton, Cobra Rhodes, but the one that stands out in my mind because I have so much tremendous respect for this guy is Giannis Almalans. So in 2014, I had medial epicondylitis all year round, and I couldn't heal it. And I know how to heal it. It's funny, but just don't go to those aggravated positions,
Yep.
just change it. So that's what I did all year round. I changed my style of arm wrestling. And if I remember right, in 2014, I went undefeated all year round in that WAL championships that they had. And then Giannis and I at the World Championships, we've gone through everybody. I was exhausted. I had adrenal exhaustion. I was like 59 years old. And it was hard to play the game when you're not really 40, but you want to be. You don't get that part. But anyway, most of my life, my career, I could call my adrenaline instantly to my mind, to my body, and be in zone. And as I got to about the age of 47, that didn't happen. So anyway, with Giannis, they're first and second place at the World Arm Wrestling League championships there. That was like one of my greatest moments to be face to face with someone who I have so much respect for.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And had I not had adrenal exhaustion, I think I could have done better than I did. But props to that guy. I mean, that guy is like one of the most incredible arm wrestlers I think I've ever met.
Absolutely, he's amazing. Awesome, that's good stuff. Well, Alan, there's no doubting that your career has been exceptional in the world of arm wrestling, and you've done so much. What's left for Alan Fisher? Are there any goals in the world of arm wrestling that you still want to tick off, or are you happy with everything you've done?
You must be talking to my wife because she she retired like 5 or 6 years ago, and she wants me to retire. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm honest with my wife, Carolyn. It's like, look, when God tells me I'm done with this sport, because
Yeah.
He's the one that designed me to be in it. I mean, when I first went to my first competition in August of '79, I was not a Christian,
Yeah.
but I knew that this is what God wanted me to do the rest of my life. Later, I have come to know Him.
Yeah.
But here I am at 62 years old. I feel like I'm in great shape. I have, little itty bitty problems with this stretching thing,
Yeah.
but still, I feel like I mean, be honest, I don't have the drive like I used to.
Yep.
But maybe I'm trying to pretend that I'm still as young as I was. I don't feel like I'm broken down yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it's an amazing sport for that. I think it's awesome. It's yeah, it does.
So I'm going to continue to go forward. Providing I can get a nice sponsor and stuff, I'm probably going to go compete in Arizona here at the Team Agent tournament.
Yep.
Finals. That sort of thing.
Awesome.
But the majority of money that I make up and beyond my salary reduce plus is I try to help my son who has a disability.
Yep.
Who will never work again. So I put on. I'm not sure if you're familiar with my arm wrestling training camps.
Yeah, I have seen them. Yep.
Okay, so I'm still doing arm wrestling training camps. I do one-on-one training. It's awesome to get people from all over the planet just to come here to train with me for 2 hours. It's just unbelievable. I mean, I got this guy coming over from Japan.
Awesome.
He knew it was basically $100 an hour, 2 hour minimum. He says, I give you $200 just to shake your hand. Comes over from Japan just for that. I'm like, wow, man, this is a humbling experience. So armwrestlingtraining.com is my link to that, if you don't mind putting that out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And anybody's welcome, man. Anybody's welcome. I love giving back. We go through a lot of different that people just that one-on-one experience can't be beat.
Yeah.
When people leave here, they leave with the knowledge that they're like, I mean, I got guys who've been in this sport 20 years. They show up here and they're like, oh my goodness,
I've been missing
how come I didn't learn this before? So
Yeah.
I'm still into doing arm wrestling training camps. I'm still, in fact, when I got off the phone with you, I got to go train and get ready.
Yep.
And I'll train all these different positions that you know about. Oh, let me give you one tip for your listeners.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so we know Ryan has a very strong bicep, right? But when you put yourself in different positions that are not okay, let's try to stay with natural, okay? Because I'm all about natural also.
Yep.
When you get yourself in different positions, are there weaknesses that you can train in that bicep area? Maybe you're not aware of those. That's something that I focus in on people is like, look, let's start training those weaknesses, because as you're training those weak positions, you're obviously training those strong positions.
Yeah.
You got to get focused on those places where, okay, there's a couple things here. Number one is 30 degree. Learn it.
Yep.
Okay? The other thing is, know this for the fact that if you arm wrestle me, I'm not speaking to you specifically, I'm not challenging you, Ryan, I'm just talking about everybody out there that wants to be on the other side of the table with me.
Yep.
What you don't use, I will use against you.
Yeah. I like it. I like it.
Come to that table, or you're approaching that table, rest assured I'm reading you. I'm watching you. I'm listening to you. And that's what you've got to take in this sport as a professional athlete. You've got to pay attention to everything. Go forward and conquer. Just remember, everybody, somebody out there wants to beat you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome advice there, Alan. Thank you so much. Well, Alan,
Absolutely.
Alan, we'll have to leave it there, man. Thank you so much for that entire interview. Hearing your story is really, truly inspirational, and it's great to hear that you're still passionate about giving so much back to the sport as well. So, mate, thank you so much for your time today.
All right, man. God bless. Take care.
Right, take care.
Bye, everybody.
Alrighty, ladies and gents, there we have it. Alan Fisher, absolute legend Alan Fisher. Over 40 years now at the elite level of sport, 62 years old, and still one of the most dominant arm wrestlers on the planet. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'd love it if you could hit like and share on this one, and we'll see you next time. Cheers, guys.